Hello and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. I'm Kevin Castley. Thank you for being here tonight. I see we've got a few people already in the chat. How's everybody doing this evening? Tonight we're going to be talking about Base Bolton versus Big Debt Don, Donald Trump. We've been talking about this quite a bit lately. I think it's important. Obviously, John Bolton is somebody that I've been a fan of for a while, over a decade basically. I find that John Bolton, and I've said this before, he's really the only big high-profile figure, at least in current politics, that speaks the truth about North Korea, that calls them out, that knows what they're doing. He sees their end game. He sees them building up nukes to blackmail America so that they can take the South. He doesn't just think of them as a meme. He doesn't just make Katy Perry jokes about them and move on with his day. He understands what's coming in the next couple of decades if nobody does anything. He understands that South Korea will fall to communism. He's very smart. He's very hawkish. And in this particular case, he is calling out the current president of the United States as essentially completely self-interested and a pigeon. Now, he hasn't called him a pigeon directly yet. That might come. But there are a couple more points that I wanted to go over in this saga. He's talking about in interviews, this is John Bolton, of course, he's been talking about how Donald Trump, in the meeting that he held with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, he felt that, at least Bolton felt that, Vladimir Putin, despite his poker face, was smiling the whole time on the inside, that he was playing Donald Trump. And that's obvious. We already know that, but I think it's important to have such a high-profile Republican call out Donald Trump as not on an even footing with the Russians, that he was seen as an easy mark by the Russians, that he was taken for a fool, in essence. And when I look at the state of affairs right now, it's really depressing to think that the leader of the United States, the leader of the Western liberal order, not only is gullible, not only is just pathetically naive, but that he owes big money to our enemies. That's why I call him Big Debt Don. And you might say, "Oh, what is that, Democratic propaganda or whatever?" It's like, no, I'm not I'm not with the Democrats or whatever. I'm saying what is fact. His own son admitted in a golf magazine several years ago that they got all their financing in the wake of his bankruptcies. All the new financing came through the Russians. They were the only country that would lend him money. He owes them a lot, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. We do have our friend Jay, the War Kettle. Go subscribe to his channel if you haven't done so yet. He's in the studio. We will bring him on in a minute. I did want to go over the other aspect of Bolton's criticism of Trump that I haven't really talked about yet in this series of videos. And that is, Bolton has called out Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus and said that he doesn't believe that he's capable of managing this crisis at all. He talked about how Donald Trump initially in the early days refused to really do anything about it or to take it seriously because he found it offensive towards his friend, Comrade Xi, in Beijing, the man he shared the beautiful chocolate cake with, the communist, the most powerful communist in the world, big buddies with Big Debt Don. He didn't like the criticism, didn't like it. He thought that it was offensive towards his friend, the guy that is building concentration camps, gulags for over 1 million Uyghurs that Donald Trump approved of, if you believe John Bolton. And I believe John Bolton. Are you going to believe Trump on this? But But yes, we do have Jay. We're going to bring on Jay. Hello, Jay. Welcome to
Good
the program.
morning.
How are you doing tonight?
Kalimera. It's a beautiful
good morning.
start to Friday morning here in Cyprus. All is well. What's going on? Oh, and John Bolton is a legend based. And I believe every single word that John Bolton has said. John Bolton could come out tomorrow and tell me that the sun is blue, and I'd believe him.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. See, that's the thing with John Bolton is it's not like it's some Democratic hack or whatever that's trying to undermine Trump. This is a guy who still will not say that he's going to vote for Joe Biden. This guy's loyal to the Republican Party, and he's calling out Trump on basically everything. So, like, who else? Who else? Like, he's the most loyal Republican out there. If anybody was just going to defend the president for partisan reasons, it would probably be Bolton, except Bolton has real principles. His principles just happen to coincide with the Republicans all the time that I don't think he's ever even considered voting for a Democrat. I don't think he could bring himself to do it. But if you really grilled him on it, I'm sure he would say that Joe Biden is a better person and more trustworthy. But of course, he has the stigma of the party associated with him. So, but to make it clear, we're not talking about AOC said that Donald Trump is buddies with Xi Jinping. This is John Bolton. Like, who else? Who else besides Trump himself would you have to hear that from to believe it? So,
Donald Trump he was whining on Twitter last night. I feel like it might have been your morning time. How someone was like a traitor or something along those lines, and I just retweeted it going, this coming from the man who sold America out to China, Russia, and Iran, and more. At real Donald Trump is the biggest traitor to America.
Well, that's right. He was calling, I believe the tweet was in specific reference to Black Lives Matter, because some leader at Black Lives Matter said that they wanted to burn everything down, and he called it an insurrection. He called it seditious. And the thing is, let's keep it real. The riots, everything that's happened, totally illegal, totally out of line. And I saw the Krasensteins or whoever it was, Krasenstein, like it might have been one of their wives or something, was on there saying, "You idiots, obviously burn it down as a metaphor. It just means, reform the system or whatever." And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, yeah, except literal riots have happened where they've burned everything. So it's like, see, that's the problem with all this, is that we're too nuanced here. That's why we don't have big subscribers, because if we just did the grift and said, oh yeah, Trump bad 100% of the time, everything that Trump does is bad, we'd have like millions or hundreds of thousands of subs. But I'm here saying, well, he's partly right about Black Lives Matter, but you're 100% right to point out his hypocrisy, that he's treasonous, that he's seditious. So
and I see Donald Trump as a bigger threat to Americans' stability, hegemony, and everything else than Black Lives Matter. I mean, Black Lives Matter really are just a decentralized group, people all over America that just use this term to protest under. It's not like I'm trying to think of an organization that's got chapters all over the place, like American Humanist Association. Yeah, they've got chapters all over the place. If the leader of American Humanists came down, then I'd be like, okay, it's a bit more of something we need to take note of, because they're an actual organization. They have funding, they have bank accounts, and so on and so on. BLM is just it's just a name that these people use to protest under.
Right. They do have founders that are revered and everything. And there was an article in the New York Post today talking about how one of them had earlier on admitted to being a, quote, trained Marxist, which I got a kick out of. I mean, because a lot of the rhetoric does go in the communist direction. It's just somebody was saying earlier, they're like, what, are you spreading conspiracy theories because I had tweeted out that they were founded, that they're led by Marxists? It's like, no, but they themselves, like, they would take that as a compliment. So,
Yeah, a lot of their members definitely would take that as a compliment. That's for sure.
It's like
No
calling
doubt about
Bosch
that.
a Marxist. He'd be like,
He'd
"Yeah,
be
I
like,
am a
"Well
Marxist."
done. I am. Yeah, exactly."
It's like that Aid Skrillex thing where the guy's like, "Oh yeah, well sit down, you punk," and the kid's just like, "Yeah, I am a punk," and you're like, "Okay, dude," like, okay. It's like, I mean, one of the reasons why I like the remix of that so much was that I don't know who made the original remix of, the white male remix, but where he says he's like, "You're an effing white male." And then on the other side of it, it's him mirrored and he's calling himself a white male. It just goes to the level of hypocrisy, the level of glass housedness on all sides, if that's a
Speaking
term.
of that particular video, I've always been under the impression that he said, "You're fucking a white male."
Oh, what? No, I thought he meant you are a fucking white male. Like in reference to him.
Um,
But that's how I always heard it. But you meant he was calling him gay? Like oh man.
uh, or well, saying that, yeah. To be honest, I can't even remember who was saying it to, a man or woman, but I've always
It
interpreted
was a
it
dude.
as, oh, it was a dude. Okay, fair enough. I've always interpreted it as "you're fucking a white male," but maybe you're right. I don't know. I'd have to, so long ago, I can barely remember. Yeah, that video,
No,
but
I know it was a long time ago, but in many ways it feels like we're back in 2016 in a lot of ways with all the riots and everything going on. But there was there was a troll of sorts on Twitter earlier that kept spamming stuff about Bolton at me, and I got a kick out of one of the insults that he had made against Bolton, and it was he said Bolton is gay and he's sleeping with three gay male lovers or whatever, and
so
I got a
someone
kick out.
tweeted out some homophobic shit. Yeah,
Yeah, but what I got a kick out of it was he could have phrased it as John Bolton's gay and he's got three lovers. We would have
yeah,
all interpreted that as they were gay lovers, right?
yeah,
That those were also guys. But no, he has to say and he's gay and he's got three gay lovers. And I'm like it's so over the top. I got a kick out of that because it's like just the way that he phrased it was just the only way that somebody does that is if they really want to emphasize the gay, like, John Bolton's gay. And I'm looking at this and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, but like, that doesn't mean he's not hot pilled. Like, what's wrong with that? Like,
yeah,
let's say John Bolton's gay. It's like, okay, he's an ardent defender of the West. Like, sure, he's a conservative himself. I don't know. I haven't really heard him speak on the issue. My guess is he's, I mean, I know for a fact that when it comes to his social conservatism, he's like against gay marriage and stuff like that. I
yeah,
don't know to what extent he himself is like would be bigoted towards anybody in his personal life, but on policy grounds, he's not down with that. So if it's like an insult against Bolton that way, but it's like if it's an insult to me that I support Bolton, he's calling him gay. It's like I don't care if he's gay.
yeah.
Like,
Unlike these people who say that they're all for liberal values and everything, they're more than happy to be homophobic when it suits them.
oh, for
When
sure,
it
they did
comes
that
to
with
us,
Pete
that
Buttigieg.
yeah,
They
when
did
it
that
comes
with
to
Pete
people like,
Buttigieg.
yeah, they did. When it comes to people like us, just because we disagree with people, we don't throw homophobic slurs around, or racist slurs, or sexist, or you know, or misogyny. The far left and the far right, they turn around and be like, "Oh, we need to stand against hate and racism and blah blah blah." But at the end of the day, they only want to stop hate, racism, and sexism and homophobia to their group. They don't care about the people on the other side or people with different political opinions. No, it's fine to be homophobic to them.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing with the low information, the low IQ blacks that with the Young Turks. They were angry that black voters rejected Bernie, so they called them low IQ. I love that.
Hmm.
I love how,
It's
the
extremely
second they're down in
racist.
the polls, they take the mask off.
Hmm.
I mean, I've had people say to me before that it's not even worth spending any time criticizing the Young Turks because they're not relevant anymore. But that being said, they still have a lot of funding and they still have a lot of views. Now, we've talked about how there are other channels out there that have far more views than them, such as like Dave Rubin and stuff, which is funny. But they still do have a presence, and the people that do like their videos are fanatics. Like you see them on Twitter, like unironic Young Turks fans. They're out there, a lot of them. And they're also like the overlap between Young Turks fans and Kyle fans. It's almost 100% at this point. So, I mean, Kyle used to be affiliated with them, if I remember. So,
isn't he still? I thought he was.
Oh well, okay. I know Jimmy left, but if
Jimmy left,
I'm not sure. Jimmy left a while ago because of the argument between him and Anna Kasparian. Essentially, there was more to it than this, but it largely broke down to Anna Kasparian was convinced that Tulsi Gabbard was a neocon and an imperialist, and Jimmy Dore saw her as this champion against imperialism and anti-war. So they split over that because Anna kept talking crap about Tulsi Gabbard, and Jimmy Dore is a simp for Tulsi. So,
oh my days!
It was just so funny though because it's like they're both wrong. That's what's so funny. Well, I mean, okay, technically Jimmy's right in the sense that she's not a neocon. Like on that, Jimmy, I guess, is more right. Anna Kasparian she called Tulsi Gabbard a neocon because she supports basically doing drone strikes against Al Qaeda, which is hilarious. It's like, yeah, that's Al Qaeda. That didn't used to that's not even political. Like even a lot of the anti-war people are like, oh, well, they did attack America, so you have to retaliate. But to Anna Kasparian, she thinks that, well, no, you don't retaliate. I guess you take the high ground by not responding. I mean, that's like some Elizabeth.
That's being a pussy.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's just the problem with Jimmy Dore. The reason why Jimmy Dore is wrong is that he talks about it as if Tulsi is like this super anti-war candidate and everything, and it's like, well, no, she's anti the United States engaging in warfare, but she literally defends Bashar the Butcher going to war against his own country. So, big oofs for tanky goofs. So,
yeah, some of these people and their views on anti-intervention, and even when it comes to defense, like the war in the last the last 20 years with let's remember that Afghanistan, we were invited in, they begged us to go there and deal with Al-Qaeda and whatnot. Iraq we went into, obviously, but I mean that was fully a defensive war for a number of reasons. And let's not forget that if Saddam did have chemical weapons, last time I checked, we did find chemical weapons there, as in gases and shit, weapons of mass destruction.
He killed over 10,000 of them.
Yeah. But we actually found the chemical weapons when we got there. And last time I checked, Kevin, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this, chemical weapons are classed as WMDs.
No, that's not true. WMDs are only nukes. I looked at it. I went to June's channel. They're only nukes. Only nukes. They stand for weapon murder device. And it means nuke.
And you got that from June. Oh well, then that must be 100% correct, mate. Because June
I got it from this. I got it from this girl right here. I'm going to bring up for those of you who don't know who we're talking about. I have. Oh yeah, this is it. That's the one where she made the thumbnail in reference to when I triggered her. I love that. Like it's the pure rent-free aspect. That's why I get a kick out of this. This is a woman with 1 million subs, and she couldn't get over this. It was like over a month after I was like war bad with the Kraut meme, and she's like, only a neocon would think that was an insult. She couldn't get over it. She couldn't get over it. That was probably the first time she ever actually saw somebody that was unironically for the United States. So she was triggered. She was hurt, dog. By the way,
she's going through a hard time at the moment. She's a single lady. Oh, single ladies.
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. She is single. Fat Greg and Brainlet June are no longer together. So, but love continues in the universe. we have a picture just the other day of Tulsi with her boyfriend gassing the kids in Syria. So right here.
Well, according to the rumors on the internet, mate, that would be you.
Oh, that's true. That's true. No, 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 no. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's incorrect. That's fake news. I'm dating Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
Oh,
not Tulsi.
AOC. Yeah, sorry.
AOC.
Yeah. Sorry, my
That
mistake. Yeah.
that's the accusation by like that
Hmm.
far right outlet that I was dating AOC, and then I was a confirmed Nazi globalist pedophile. I love what Reese
Oh,
had to
wow,
say
it's
about it. He's like,
extended.
yeah, because well, no, I like what Reese had to say about it because Reese is just like, oh yeah, because that's what a pedophile would do. Date like a 28-year-old woman or something. Like,
Mm.
okay. I mean, I think that's kind of funny. It's like, oh yeah, you're a pedophile. You're dating Hillary Clinton, pedophile. It's like, okay, how old is she? Like, I mean, here's one of Bolton triggering Tanky Tulsi right here. Have you seen this meme before? I really like this one. I will mix up the memes at some point. A lot of these ones are memes everybody's seen before, but like I've got hundreds of memes that I can cycle through.
Mm.
So I haven't been making as many memes these days. I've been focusing on the streams, so I appreciate it that Arthur and Suzuki and some of the other hawks have stepped up the
Yeah.
meme game, so we can have the hot content for the page. Obviously, this one's an old one. I made this one a long time ago, right here. The Virgin Dictator versus the Chad President. This one actually got like over 500 likes on Reddit, which was impressive because I never really use Reddit. So,
Do you know what you want to do though, Kevin? Right? Is you want to put your little when they're your memes, you want to put in like your Superpower Broadcasting logo and have
oh
the
no,
name.
I did.
Oh,
It's
you
at the
did
top
you?
right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
at
yeah.
Liberal
Sorry, I
Hawk
thought that
Memes.
was a bleed over from the. But you want to have it properly, or maybe even put your YouTube channel in there, because yeah, if it goes viral or something up on Reddit or something, you might get some extra subs out of it. That's what I do. I always put the War Kettle thing on there.
Yeah.
So, well, my name's pretty unique and whatnot, and it's the same for everything: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, fucking whatever social media platform you want to go on. Type in the War Kettle, you will find me.
Yeah, that's true. No, I did gain some followers on my meme page over that. I gained like quite a few. I'm up to almost 2,500 followers right now, which is good, but it hasn't translated so well into the YouTube channel because I haven't really promoted it as much. And there doesn't seem to be as much of an interest for like long videos from people that are just into like, like short memes and stuff. So there isn't too much of an overlap there. I mean, realistically speaking, I've only probably gained about 30 or 40 followers to this channel from the meme page. So, but the meme page is still important. So, because you're reaching people that they don't watch long streams. So, somebody needs to hawk pill those people too. But I like this comment here from Arthur. He says, TYT fans are aggressive SJWs. Kyle's fans are aggressive plus racist and sexist. But we do have a friend of the channel joining us tonight. We have over on Twitch, we have Millsrow. So I'm not sure if this is Henry. I don't know. He's saying like, we missile civilians.
Yes, I've seen that on Twitch. Everyone watching should be going over to Kevin's Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Superpower Broadcasting, and following Kevin there. We need to get him pumped up on the old Twitch. I always load up my Twitch for when Kevin's streaming because we need to get his view numbers up and get him at least to the point where people can start subbing and giving Kevin $5 a month.
That'd be based. That'd be based. Oh man, I appreciate it. He says, well, Melstrose says that he respects you, but that Kevels is a dangerous warmonger. It's like you're the war kettle.
I know.
It's like I'm pretty sure you're a dangerous warmonger as well. So,
well, it's probably my English charm and whatnot that wins him over my way. So, mad respect. Can't help it. They just love my accent.
Oh man, no, it is a good accent. It is a good accent. We got Dr. Zayas here. He says we need the memes and the streams. I agree with that.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. I will still make more memes for the page. I've just been taking a break. I haven't really crafted a meme for that page in several weeks now. But again, big up to the Hot Gang. They send memes for me to show the people. So we gotta keep it going. Gotta keep growing. You
I
got
want
Hot
to.
Kill
Oh,
the World.
I'm also going to say something quite controversial, which a lot of people are going to find controversial. But
Uh,
yeah, the British Empire did more good than evil for the world.
Oh, that is something that many people would be inclined to counsel you over. To me, it
Hmm.
seems pretty apparent. Like of all the big empires that were out there, you look at like Japan, you look at Germany, you
Hmm.
look at Belgium, you look at France, especially. They were brutal as hell. And
Oh
the
yeah,
British, they were brutal, but they were the least brutal and they were the most enlightened of any of them. They had the most relative respect towards the colonies of any of the others. And yeah, you can point
yeah.
to genocides, you can point to quelling rebellions and stuff. Those other empires did the same, except look at how the Belgians treated Congo. Look at how the Japanese treated the Chinese. Look at how the
Hmm.
French treated the Algerians. It's
Hmm.
it's not really the same level. I mean, the
Exactly.
British colonial project was far more tame in comparison than any of the others. And so that's why you can make the argument there that the gains that came from it outweighed the negatives. And
Oh
by and large, it was a loss for Britain in terms of the economics, especially near the end of it. It became very expensive to maintain the empire in that sense. It wasn't even benefiting them. So,
well, not
but
just that, Kevin, but you also have to remember that the British Empire sacrificed its life to defend Western civilization from Nazi fascism.
And that's but that's wrong though because you're missing the broader point, which is that yes, they fought Nazi fascism, but they fought for Churchill fascism. Churchill owned slaves, bro. Didn't you hear about it? Didn't you hear about it? They had to take his statue down. The Antifa took his statue down. I get a
They
kick out of that.
tried. They tried.
They tried. Yeah, it's
They
like okay,
tried.
but like he was literally the anti-fascist of the day. Like I'm so sick of these people. I know people that like went to my school that
Mm.
unironically think that memes like, well, if you're against Antifa, that means that you're for fascism. That's like saying that if you're against North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, you're against democracy. It's
Yeah,
like it's such a stupid meme, and I'm like, how are you 25 and think that that's a good argument? How are you
exactly.
28 and think that that's a good argument? That's pathetic, dude.
Hmm.
Like Antifa. It's like, okay, but like I can name an organization anything. Like if Al Qaeda renamed themselves to like um uh the Super Friends for Peace, like and they go around bombing people, it's like, oh, I guess they love peace. If you're against them, that means that you're against peace, bro. They say they like peace.
Yeah, these far lefties and whatnot, they're just this is they've not got any worse. They've just been getting louder, and the internet has provided them that platform to get louder.
Oh, for sure. That's the problem with the internet is that I mean, Reese and I, we talked about this a long time ago. Is the internet of basically of the internet as a total failure? That the hope for it to serve as this conduit through which the Enlightenment could be consolidated and expanded turned out to
Yeah.
just basically be a vulnerability that could be exploited by our enemies, and we would
Mm.
be suckers about it. And if anybody points out that the Russians did it, people would say, what? You think Russia's fascist? Yeah, the 1980s called. They want their foreign policy back, boomer. It's like, oh my god,
Mm.
dude. I mean, okay, boomer shit, the Chapo tier shit. Just by and large, the fact that if you go into online spaces and you try to see like who are the big independent YouTubers out there, whether they're far left or far right, they all agree on the Russian party line. They all agree that Hillary Clinton's bad,
Hmm.
Putin's a victim of Western
Hmm.
imperialism. They all agree that America's the problem. They're all against Lockheed Martin. They're all against the
Oh yeah.
Pentagon. Like the biggest voices that I found on YouTube that in any way have any nuance that would essentially allow them to assess the U.S. in a fair way are like Kraut, Bill Crystal, and some of the neocon guys that happen to have YouTube channels that they never really upload to very much that have like 20,000 subs versus Kyle, Jimmy, June, like million plus subs, Young Turks, 4 million, 5 million. Steven Crowder, by the way, I mean, some of Steven Crowder's stuff, especially with like Black Lives Matter and everything, I find funny. Obviously, I got a kick out of his skit where he was making fun of Jank because Jank was woke scolding other companies for not allowing unions, but then he goes and cracks down on people trying to unionize within his company. Like I thought that was funny, but let's keep it real. His foreign policy sucks. The only guy on the right wing that has any big following on YouTube that has reasonable foreign policy takes is like Ben Shapiro. And look at what the right wing's trying to do with him. They're trying to brand him as like this communist Democrat, all this kind of stuff. So, oh, he's a Jew. You can't trust him. That's like the Nick Fuentes approach, right? So,
to be honest with you, Kevin, Steven Crowder, I've always found as a bit of a joke. I don't really find his humor that entertaining at all. Ben Shapiro, I feel like he just hypes on too much about, which annoys me in a way because he always goes, it's the liberals, and they are not liberals. These people that like Antifa and who cause all these problems and the far left, they're not liberals, they're illiberals. People need to stop calling them liberals because they're not in any way liberal.
No, I would agree with that. The problem is he's using the American usage, and a lot of people use that term. Like Young Turks,
true, yeah.
Obviously, Crowder and Ben Shapiro use it. All the mainstream media use it. Liberal in America basically is indistinguishable from like socialism at this point. It's good because Bernie Sanders is a literal democratic socialist, and they call him a staunch liberal. All this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, but he's illiberal. He's defending the Cuban system. So, but yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing with a lot of this kind of stuff is that. Oh, and then of course, how can I forget? Like Paul Joseph Watson, he's done apologetics for the Taliban and Al Qaeda. Like that's the problem. Like where are the hawks? Like and where are the hawks?
There's me, you, and Reese. Other than that, there is no.
Yes, but like that's a problem. That's why the internet has been such a failure because you would expect that in this time when we're under siege from China, Russia, North Korea is building up all these nukes to aim at us, to blackmail us. You would think that this would be the time when people would really just naturally come around to the hawk pill and say, I've had it. Like this is a time that demands action. But we live in an era in which basically once you go outside of the 10,000 subscriber or 15,000 subscriber mark, there really isn't anybody besides maybe Kraut. But Kraut himself, his content for the most part hasn't really even focused too much on like interventionism or anything. But he says that he feels, the closest to like the neocon and hawk community on YouTube. So, as of what he tweeted out like a couple months ago. But
and Kraut's never really done sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Hawk videos, his stuff is more correcting far lefties dumbass talking points or far right talking points and showing where they're wrong, debunking stuff. I'd say that's where most of his stuff has been, isn't it?
Well, that's basically it. That's basically it. A lot of the stuff that's online right now, especially the foreign policy stuff that's out there, it's all Russia. You don't understand, man. I don't know if you know this, but like after the Cold War ended, America promised they wouldn't expand NATO, and they did. so therefore Putin's a victim. Like that's like it's not trippy, it's not original, it's not creative. You're not blowing anybody's minds. We've all heard the meme before that Putin's actually the good guy. It's just it's overplayed. The fact that people still find that edgy, like, oh yeah, we're sticking it to the Pentagon by bootlicking for the Kremlin again. Like, it's pretty sad, man. So
yeah, and we wouldn't have to expand NATO if it wasn't for, you know, Eastern Europe begging to join NATO. And also, let's not forget that nothing's changed with fascist Russia since the start of the Russian Federation. Under Putin, they've fought, what, 2-3 expansionistic wars. Hello, has everyone forgotten about Eastern Ukraine and Crimea?
Oh, yeah, well, but you don't understand, Jay. Ukraine is actually, you don't understand, there are ethnic Russians that live there, so therefore Putin was right to invade them, because it wasn't really invading them, because it was actually Russian territory, because there was like 2 Russian dudes that lived in the country. So ethnic minority, man, ethnic minority. So he had a right to go in. By the way, that's like the same bullshit pretext that Hitler gave for going into the Sudetenland.
Exactly.
So it's like, we've seen this shit before. I'm so sick of it. And these are the exact same people that if you call them out on their bullshit and say, well, you know, you would have stood by while Hitler was taking over the world, they would say, well, no, that one was justified. And it's like, because that was Hitler. It's like, okay, but Putin's making the same moves and you're saying that he's the good guy and we're the bad guys. Obviously, June and all these people and Kyle and Jimmy and Young Turks, they would have been defending Hitler back in the day. Yeah. I mean,
oh, God, yeah.
Like the furthest they would have gone was to say they didn't like what Hitler was doing within his borders, but it's not our place to stop him because that would be imperialism.
Yeah, they would have been those people that were, what was it, before America got involved in the war, were protesting on the streets saying, no, let's not get involved in European wars.
Why not peace, bro? Why not peace, bro? They literally had signs like that, like Hitler is our friend. Hitler just wants peace, all this stuff. It's like, I have more respect for the fascists that would say, you know, why would we go to war with them? We like what they're doing. I can't stand the people who say what they're doing is bad, but it's not our place to do anything about it. Those people are worse, because it's like, if you agree with him and that's your ideology, obviously you're not going to want to intervene. But if you have all this cute talk about, oh, you know, Kim Jong-un, he's a bad guy, but for us to do anything, that'd be bad. It's like, that's pathetic. It's pathetic. I've had people say that to me before about Obama, that it's better what Obama did with North Korea than Trump, because Obama at least called Kim what he was, which was a brutal dictator. But I'm like, in a way, it's actually worse, because at least with Trump, you see him kissing Kim's ass and you see that he admires Kim and he wants to make himself president for life. And you're like, oh, I can see why he likes the dictator. He wants to be one. With Obama, on the other hand, Obama knew that Kim was a bad guy, but he was too feckless to do anything about it. So that's even worse in my view. Like, if you have sympathy, obviously you're not going to do anything. But imagine being opposed to somebody, but then saying, oh yeah, but we're not going to do anything. That's worse. That's by far worse, because it means that you don't believe that your values have any degree of universal legitimacy to them. It's like, basically human rights for whites, to hell with everyone else. And essentially, that's kind of what it boils down to. That's like Kyle Kulinski, because he's super liberal at home, but then look at him defend Iran and Putin and Bashar.
Oh yeah, they don't care about. Sorry, Kevin, my phone's ringing. I got to take it.
Yeah. So Jay's just on the phone right now. So we'll wait for him to come back. We do have a bit of an active chat tonight. It's good to see. Yeah, we got Kadava in the chat saying Putin is changing the constitution to allow him to stay in power until 2036. It's like, yeah, but that's just a formality anyway. like if he's still alive in 2050, he'll still be in power then. Like for like as long as he's alive, he's going to be the guy in charge unless somebody does something about it from the outside. So what else is there here? Oh yeah. Yeah, Dr. Zayas is just pointing out Medvedev was the seat warmer. So yeah.
Just because I'm at home, Kevin, doesn't mean I'm not on call for work.
You gotta go to work.
No. That was just a call sorting some things out.
Gotcha.
But what I've got to do for today and whatnot. Because I work from home, don't I? So, get people ringing and whatnot saying, Ray, do this for me. I need this doing or this and this. So, but it's all good. It's going to be a bit of a quiet day today, which is lovely. Means I can sit out in the sun, edit some content,
That's good. That's good. Yeah. We're just talking about this whole situation earlier to kind of bring it back to this whole Bolton thing. What are your thoughts on the Bolton versus Trump kind of debacle? Because of course I got Reese, he came on and we talked for about 4 hours about it. But what do you make of all of this? And have you read Bolton's book, or are you planning to read Bolton's book? Because I've got it on order.
I have it. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and read it yet, but at the end of the day, I know exactly that I'm going to agree with everything that Bolton says, and not just that. Anything that Bolton says about Trump, straight off the bat, I have no reason to doubt John Bolton one bit. At the end of the day, John Bolton's heart and loyalty, everything is in the right place. He is an American patriot and loyal to the American system and the American state. And Trump isn't. Trump is a traitor. Trump is a sellout. Trump is dangerous. And if he got 4 more years, I would see it would be a very, very, very dangerous for America. I think that pretty much sums up my position when it comes to that, really.
Oh yeah, no, it's interesting because people have said before that they're not necessarily comfortable with John Bolton because John Bolton isn't a humanitarian interventionist. He's an American nationalist, an offensive realist, and a patriot for America. But it's like, regardless of your sway on the motivations behind foreign policy action, you'd rather have somebody who's like an ardent defender of America, even if it's simply because he was born in America, than Russia. Because you could point out that Sergei Lavrov and Bolton actually have a lot in common. Sergei Lavrov is an offensive realist too. He's very high up. Obviously, he's like the most powerful person in the Russian foreign policy establishment outside of Putin. And his, he's in his inner circle. They do all kind of hawkish moves in their neck of the woods out there, as well as like in Venezuela and other parts of the world. So they both have a very similar understanding of international relations. They're both offensive realists, but there's a reason why Bolton's better than Lavrov. It's because now you might say, oh, well, John Bolton was born in America, but it's like, okay, but if Lavrov was born in America, he was doing the same things for America, then I'd say that Lavrov was better than Bolton if Bolton was working for the Russians. It's like, because even if you're doing the same stuff, there's not a false equivalency, or that's a false equivalency, because by definition, if America, like, let's say that America goes in and does a regime change, and then Russia goes in and does a regime change, which one is going to be better? They're not going to be equal. The American one is going to turn out better for humanity. It's going to be in the interest of humans more. So, America is a better country. Like there's, I mean, the Russian foreign policy apparatus exists to promote Putin's personal financial enrichment. The American foreign policy establishment exists to secure America and to promote democracy and capitalism in the world. So there's a big difference there. So
massive difference. And I'd rather have Bolton defending America and whatnot than Donald Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Bolton hasn't got a history of selling America out.
No, that's the thing. I had people that were like super strong Trump fans on Twitter that were saying that it's stupid for Bolton to criticize Trump over the COVID thing because they're arguing that if Bolton was in charge of America, he would sell it to China in 20 minutes. And I'm like, what? Like, that's projection 101. Like, Bolton doesn't, I don't know if like people are aware of this or not. Bolton is not a fan of Xi Jinping at all.
Exactly.
Like, he talks about how Donald Trump it has this really good relationship with him and everything, and that he's really friendly with Xi Jinping, and that he didn't want to get tough on the COVID thing initially because he was worried that it would hurt his buddy's feelings, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, but Bolton would be the one selling out to China if he got power. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, I'll tell you what a John Bolton administration would look like with regards to China. China would be contained. Like, it wouldn't be chummy patty cakes. It would be, you're not making any more moves in the South China Sea. North Korea is annihilated. You are contained, and your little one belt, one road project, that was cute, but we're nipping it in the bud. And
exactly.
We're bringing NATO to the Pacific, basically. That's what would happen with John Bolton. I mean, oh no, but he would sell out. He would sell out. It's hilarious. It's the same. Like, I've seen people make the same argument about Joe Biden. They're like, yeah, but Joe Biden would be weak on Russia. It's like, even if he were Bill Clinton tier weak on Russia, he's at least not in debt to them. Like, obviously, Bill Clinton could have done more to get tough on Russia, but, you know, he could have done less, too. He's somewhere in between. But the idea that Trump, like, I've had people tell me that Trump is actually tough on Russia because, you know, he's sending aid to Ukraine. And it's like, yeah, but if you listen to Bolton and you believe the allegations that were out there that seem pretty credible, Trump told the State Department to basically withhold any support for Ukraine, and he had military aid and foreign aid halted until they launched a political investigation into Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
So, but he's fighting the Russians. He's tough on the Russians. He's opposed the Magnitsky Act. He's opposed. He said in the past that he wants to lift sanctions on them. He's talked about bringing them back into the G8 without them handing Crimea back. He's talked about no precondition summits before. Like, what? He's tough on them. In what world is he tough on them? But there are people, there are pro-Trump hawks even they're doing the mental gymnastics right now. They're trying to say, well, you know, no, you don't understand. He has been tough on them. He's increased the military budget. The only thing the only argument of any sort that they have in their favor is that the military budget has gone up under Trump, whereas under Biden, my worry would be that he might halt it or lower it because, of course, Obama didn't increase it very much. Obama made some cuts too. There was the sequester, all this kind of stuff. That's a problem. But even with a smaller military, I've said this before, if you have no willpower, it doesn't matter how big or small your military is. You're getting your ass kicked either way in the long run. So, like, yeah, sure, he's got more money going to the Pentagon. They're not able to do anything with it because Donald Trump likes Daddy Vladdy. So
exactly. And Uncle Kim.
Yeah, Kim. That's right. Kim, obviously Xi Jinping, Duterte. I mean, there's like the only democratically elected leader out there that he seems to have any sort of like a decent relationship with is Boris Johnson. That seems to be it. Like, everybody else, he's just down with the dictators.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure when it comes to Boris, because Boris hasn't really had to. Since Boris has come into power, all he's done is deal with Brexit and then Corona. So it's not like they've had an opportunity to actually, hash things out properly or have proper discussions about things. On that one, I'm going to have to say time will tell. But Trump came out as against Theresa May, came out against David Cameron. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, winning the flu. That's Xi Jinping. That's what we were calling Xi Jinping, is winning the flu. So,
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I like this. Dr. Zayas is just like, Bolton would sell out to China because it's such a dumb talking point. Basically, they know that Trump sold out to China. So they're like, yeah, Bolton would have sold out faster. It's like, yeah, except he wouldn't.
Exactly.
I mean, the best thing that Trump ever did was hire John Bolton. And the worst thing that he ever did was force John Bolton to leave. Like, those are the defining moments of this administration, because everything good that came out of this administration was basically John Bolton or John Bolton influenced. And everything bad was when he ignored or defied John Bolton. I mean, the peace party for the Taliban, the endless wars. I mean, we got to a point, I don't know if you saw the tweet, Jay, but did you see the one where Donald Trump posted on Twitter that he was gonna that he was like, well, we'll drop bombs on you to John Bolton. He's like, you like bombing and killing people. We'll drop bombs on you to John Bolton. I don't think the president's ever sent a death threat to a former member of his administration before.
When has ever a president sent a death threat like that?
I mean, I know Andrew Jackson did some shady stuff, but I don't even think he did that level in terms of his own administration. But
exactly,
like, I know that he would just kill dudes and stuff, but and Donald Trump, he's floated the idea too. He's done the Jackson thing. He's basically said, hey man, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose a single voter. So, now he's talking about his own administration, not just a random civilian. That's interesting turn of events. I did see a report out that said that the communist Chinese right now, they are happy with Bolton's book because it's making fun of Trump, but they don't like the parts of the book that are critical of communist China. I find the idea of communist China being like, oh yeah, let's hype up the Bolton book, but like censor all the parts that are, I guess, anti-authoritarian. It's like, okay, what's left? I haven't read the book yet, but John Bolton's never been, vague about his repulsion for communist dictators. Like, I'm just imagining like John Bolton being out there right now, just like, oh yeah, you guys like do the gulags and stuff. That's cool, I guess. Like, he's the last person that would say that. I mean, the thing is, the thing that sucks is that he's kind of rare. Like, we don't have more figures like this. Like, if you listen to Kyle, you listen to Jimmy, you listen to Young Turks, you listen to Charlie Kirk, all these other people, you would get this impression that like half of Washington, D.C. is basically John Bolton's walking around, that they're all hawkish. But it's like, no, he's really the only one, and he doesn't really have any power anymore. So it's like, and they're criticizing him for the book. Like, I saw Wolf Blitzer, I saw other people too that were saying, in the interviews, they're basically like, yeah, but you're going to make like $2 million from this book. And I'm just thinking the whole time, I'm like, okay, but like Bernie made millions from his book. AOC is going to write a book and make millions. Ilhan Omar is going to write a book. Like, they all write books. They all make big money. I don't understand
It's like the go-to thing. Yeah, everybody writes a book when they leave office. That's what you do when you leave office.
That's what you do.
Yeah,
like
Obama,
a
rite of passage. Yeah,
they all write their books, and they're like, oh yeah, but you wrote a book, so it's like, are you just doing this for the money? Basically, it's like, okay, but are you going to ask Bernie that question? Are you going to ask Obama that question? Are you going to ask any of these other people the question? Like, because if you're going to follow that through to its logical conclusion, you'd have to ask every former politician, oh, did you just run so that you could write this book to make money? Because they all write the books and they all make money.
Yeah.
So this idea that we can dismiss John Bolton's arguments because he's making $2 million from it, it's like he's right to point out he's like he could have made more in the private sector. I believe that over like
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years. So
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
don't think it's about the money for him. So
Of course not. Of course not. You can see that.
there are easier ways to make money than be the only hawk that everybody calls an evil dude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like he gets more haters than anybody. Like Reese has a lot of haters, but Bolton has a lot more haters than even Reese. So
Mm.
I imagine going through his life everywhere he goes, everywhere online, except for like our channels. It's just, oh yeah, this guy likes to suck the blood of babies and stuff. You know, like it's just he is the ghoul. Like when they say the neocon ghouls, everybody thinks of like John Bolton. They think of him as like ghoulish, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, because there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing more ghoulish than being against the Kim regime, Saddam Hussein, the Taliban, Putin, Xi Jinping. Like, oh, it's so ghoulish, man. It's so ghoulish. You know, he likes to suck the blood. You know.
Yeah. It's fucked up that it's just so annoying, especially when these so-called, the lefties, the far lefties, they go on about progressive values, progressive values for the West, and then they're like, oh no, but fuck women, fuck gays, fuck minorities in the Middle East and Africa. It's just sickening, really.
Oh, for sure. That was one of the biggest turnoffs to progressivism was, just realizing how it's all solely a domestic concern. They don't give a shit about the rights of people outside of their own borders. Like that's another thing that they share with the white nationalists. The only difference is the white nationalists won't bullshit you about it. They'll say straight up, they're like, I
Yep.
only care about white
Mm-hmm.
Americans or white
Mm-hmm.
British or white Canadians. Whereas for these people like Young Turks, there's this pretense that they believe in like human rights and stuff, but
Yeah.
they don't. Like Noam Chomsky
Exactly.
defended and apologized for the Khmer Rouge killing 3 million Cambodians, like in a country of like what, like under 10 million people? Or no, it was like 6 million people. Like he killed half the country in a few years. And
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky's like, oh yeah, but he was fighting the capitalist bourgeoisie and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, those school teachers that got executed, they were so bourgeois, So it's pathetic. Like Noam Chomsky's had a huge influence on that progressive attitude. Obviously, like Kyle and all these other disciples of Chomsky, and that line of thinking, they're gross because it's the most cognitive dissonance inducing worldview that you could have. Of basically, oh yeah, we're for gay rights here, we're for progressivism here, but we're going to defend the most ultra conservative regimes around because they're fighting a progressive or at least a liberal um, world order. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Like, well, whose side are you on? Are you with
Mm-hmm.
the terrorists or what? Because a lot of them they will look at things. They will look at conservatism in Christian communities in America, and they will be disgusted by it. They will make many videos, just as Kyle did, going after, a lot of the ridiculous sort of like, the Creation Museum and all this sort of stuff and the attitudes towards homosexuality. But then if you ever bring up brown Muslims, oh no, man, that's their culture, bro. We need to respect their culture. It's like, okay, but that's basically the same thing as what you're criticizing in Alabama,
Yeah.
except an even more brutal manifestation of it. Because you don't
Mm-hmm.
really see too many people in Alabama going around and like, you know, beheading people and stuff like that. But
Exactly.
that's another reason why the progressives are so full of it is that their opposition to theocracy and their opposition to religious conservatism, it's only directed against like white Christians. That's it.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
every other religion gets a pass. So
Oh yeah, they will let every group, any group, basically. Like for example, they will never ever talk about the fundamentalism in Hinduism. for example.
Oh, and that too.
You know, like take, for example, what's his name in India? I can't think of his name right now. The Prime Minister of India.
Modi. Narendra Modi.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm on Modi's side when it comes down to
Same
the whole
here.
China issue.
Yeah.
Because China is a bigger threat than right-wing Modi.
Oh, yeah. No, Modi actually wants to like get along with the West. He wants to be economically closer to us, and he hates the communists, and he really doesn't like Pakistan. So like I agree with him on all that. So, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, this idea, we were talking about it in the Hot Gang chat earlier about how this idea that we're allies with communist China and we're allies with Pakistan, those alliances came out of the Cold War. Like the alliance with Pakistan was so that they were a base that was largely used for like U-2 flights over the Soviet Union. And obviously China was an ally because Nixon wanted to use them against the Soviets, and it was a smart move at the time. But ironically, we're still living like we're in the Cold War by maintaining these relationships. Like if you bring up that it's time to have a more aggressive foreign policy or whatever, they'll say, "Oh no, you're hawkish. You sound like the 1980s. The Cold War wanted its foreign policy back." Yet these people want to continue trading with Pakistan and China, and it's like, okay, but those are antiquated relationships that only made sense when the Soviet Union existed, when there was a greater evil. Like, so they're the ones who, in that sense, ironically, are living in the 1980s. They think that if you just trade more with China, you just trade and do more deals with Pakistan, maybe they'll start playing nice and they won't harbor a bin Laden again. It's like, they're not on our side, man. They're not on our side.
Exactly.
And the reason why, and the reason why we're more hesitant to work with India is because India was closer to the Soviet Union during the Cold War. So it's like we're still living in the Cold War, except the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. People need to get over their apprehension of working with India. Like, yes, they buy stuff from Russia. Part of the reason why they buy stuff from Russia is that the U.S. hasn't really given them a proper deal yet that they give other allies on war hardware and stuff. So, like, I'm sure they would prefer to buy U.S. stuff if they were able to get a discount on it. So.
Oh, of course, mate. I mean, it kind of goes the same here with the Cypriot government. They had no choice but to buy them MP5s from Russia because there was a massive ban on buying American-made weapons for, 40 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the tough one. I could see why, because, of course, Turkey is like the second largest army in NATO. They were really useful against the Soviets, too. And so they would be more useful against the Soviets than Cyprus would. But I mean, it's just we're not living in the old Cold War. We're living in a Cold War, but it's not the same Cold War. It has different characteristics now. And the idea that like we're just going to continue working with China and Pakistan, like as if that's somehow like that was ordained by nature, that this was always the way that it was going to be. It's like, no, those relationships came about from necessity of being against the Soviets. Why are we still even talking with these people? Why are we buying shit from China? Why are we cooperating with Pakistan? Pakistan hid bin Laden for years. Like, what?
He was next to their fucking one of their military bases.
Literally half a mile away.
I'm pretty sure it's closer, but either way, he was fucking close, you know?
It's just, they're so full of it, man. They're so full of it. And then they go, and they're working with China, of course, against India. India's surrounded. They've got nuclear powers to the northwest and the northeast. And so India's obviously very threatened right now. And it's in this time that you would hope that a stronger ally that would stand with the largest democracy in the world in terms of voting numbers would come in and say, oh, yeah, you know, we know that you bought stuff from the Soviets during the Cold War, but we're not in the Cold War anymore. We want to work with you against the new enemies. But no, I mean, again, this goes back to part of my huge beef with the whole neoliberal community and stuff is that they really think that if you trade with China, you can like basically make them a democracy or whatever. It's stupid, man. Like
it didn't work,
China,
guys. It didn't work.
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
30 years.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. I like to do, economic liberalization first, but the simple fact is it didn't work. Now we need to move on and start looking the next level of dealing with this. And this is why I'm sure I've told you this plenty of times, Kevin, but this is why I've always said, at first we start off with it's the carrot and the stick argument. We start off with the carrot. The carrot is we'll build schools, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. And if you liberalize, excellent. Become more democratic, excellent. If you don't, that's when the stick comes into play. Well, the carrot hasn't worked with China, so it's time to get the stick out.
Oh, no, that sounds like what a warmonger ghoul would say. That sounds like an imperialist thing, Jay. It sounds like a no good imperialism.
Mate, I just want to liberate the people of China and Iran and whatnot, because it's not fair that they have to live under these brutal dictatorships. And that's what they are.
Huh, you sound like a bootlicker for the CIA and the military-industrial complex. And,
I'm not really a fan
the
of the... Oh, there it is. And that's another thing that annoys me is the anti-Semitism that's in the left and the right.
They're both. They both
hate
Jews, basically. Like the left wing basically sees Jews as like the owners of capital that keep the working people, the world enslaved. And the right wing basically sees Jews as like the propagators of like liberal degeneracy or whatever. And also, I guess, keep the people enslaved or whatever. They have a lot of
is what the right wing normally go with as well, because
I always
they
get
want
a kick
to
out of
commit white genocide.
I even had somebody a while ago who looked at some of my content that was really critical of the current lending industry and called me anti-Semitic based on it. And I'm like, if you think that being critical of banks right now is anti-Semitic, you're anti-Semitic. I mean, most of the CEOs of these banks anyway are like white dudes. Like the idea that like it's the stereotype.
The funny thing is, actually, when it comes to the media and the media and the banks, a lot of them are Irish, but I don't remember seeing any Irish supremacy going on and people talking about Irish supremacy and the great Irish takeover of the Western world,
No,
it's because they just want to pick and choose who their enemy is. And the classic enemy of the world is always the Jew.
Yeah, it's the oldest meme in the book. It's the reason why they accuse me of being a Jew, because of my ears. Big ears is not a Jew thing. It's not a stereotypically Jew thing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't have a stereotypically big nose, so they have to point to something else of my.
Hello? I think my headset's died. Okay, I don't think it's my headset that's died. I think Kevin has died. Yes, I'm here. Everyone can hear me, in the chat. Give me a big up walk out in the chat if you can hear me fine. Yeah, so it's Kevin that's died. I thought it was me. Oh. Yep, Kevin's died. He's left the program. We've lost Kevin, people. Oh, crikey. That means I'm going to have to entertain you all by myself. All right. Welcome to the British Hour. I am Jay Turner, the War Kettle, and this is the British Hour on Superpower Broadcasting. So let's talk about British things. Does everyone have a nice cup of tea? Sit down, everybody. Get yourself a nice cup of tea. Perfect English breakfast tea is perfect at this time of the day. And let's talk British things. Tea is amazing. Oh, there's Kevin. He's in the chat. Don't worry, Kevin. I've taken over the show. It's now time for British Hour here on Superpower Broadcast. People were asking, how is Cyprus? Oh, mate. Sorry. How is Corona going in Cyprus? Amazing, mate. I mean, we've been out of lockdown now for 4 weeks, I want to say, maybe even longer, actually. We've slowly been opening the airports up. I think we've just banned Israelis again because the government weren't happy with how many people were looking like they had temperatures and things, so they put them back on the ban list. Brits are still banned, so no English allowed in Cyprus. Numbers wise, I think we've only had actually 2 cases in the last week of people who were living here. All the other cases that we've had reported are from what is it? When people fly into the country, for example, that. The government is fining businesses like there's no tomorrow for breaching. So the government put a lot of rules in place about hygiene and whatnot, and what you're meant to do, like in the restaurants and in the pubs and stuff like that. There's been 1 or 2. Well, actually, there's been a few more than just 1 or 2. There's been quite a few, mainly nightclubs that have not been sticking to the rules, basically not making sure that there's 2-meter distance and stuff like that. So they've basically been fining them like a motherfucker. One of them got an $8,000 fine the other day because it was their second time that the government had been in and found them failing to enforce the rules. Pip, pip, cheerio. Damn right, mate. Damn straight. But yeah, Cyprus has done extremely well. But you've got to remember that what worked here in Cyprus is what's for Cyprus. I don't think this could have worked any in other countries and whatnot. For example, we completely locked down. Like as soon as we saw this come in, as soon as we knew it was here, the government pretty much locked down. And we've only had 992 cases. Now, bearing in mind, the island is a population of 1.2. So in total cases, here it is, total cases per million is 822 per million. So if we look at, say, for example, Brazil, where its total cases per million is 5,802. So you can see that there's a big difference. But again, comparing numbers from country to country, you can't really do because so many variables come into this. However, it's just interesting to look at that and look at the numbers and whatnot. Excuse me, I'm just going to light a cigarette here because, this is how you do it. Christopher Hitchens styles. But yeah, the Cypriot government did an amazing job of dealing with this whole crisis, to be honest with you. Can't knock them at all for what they've done. They basically got on with dealing with the problem, providing the necessary equipment and resources to the authorities that were needed. They also provided us with financial support for employees, employers, and stuff like that. Oh, I got things going on here in the chat. So let's have a quick look here. And we'll come back to the Corona in Cyprus. Kettle, do you wear a monocle and a morning coat with a top hat and pipe? No to all of that. I wouldn't mind a morning coat, but unfortunately, I live in Cyprus. It would probably be a bit too hot for that. Maybe in the winter, I could get away with that. It might be cool enough. Kevin's sorting out his Wi-Fi. How often do you raise your teacup to the Queen, Jay? Every time I drink tea, raise it to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and the Commonwealth. Because God save the Queen, long live the Queen, and so on. Kevin says, Jay, do you eat fish and chips? I love fish and chips, mate. I'm an Englishman. Of course I eat fish and chips. Funny you should say that, actually. I was down in Mandria, which is a town just down the road from me. It's about a 5-minute drive, basically. And they do the best fish and chips on this whole goddamn island. Like, you know, you cannot knock the fish and chips that this place does. It is some of the best cod and chips I've had, not just in Cyprus, but probably in my life. It's in the top 5, I would say. Top 5 fish and chips, you know. Beautiful, beautiful cup of tea right there. I'll tell you that now. Yeah. Oh, Kevin says, are there any stereotypical British things that you think are cringe, or is it all based? I mean, we probably do have some cringy shit, but I mean, a lot of our shit is pretty based. Like in the South, we have this thing called cheese tossing, where we toss cheese down a hill and it goes spinning down. Yeah, we've got lots of fucking things. Morris dancing. I mean, some people see that as cringy, but I quite enjoy it, watching, you know, and taking part in. It's quite fun. I realized too late that I'd never had fish and chips when I went to England. Oh my boy, that is terrible. You need to go back to England and have some fish and chips on that one. I'm telling you now. Smoking. Christopher Hitchens style, my friend. I just noticed your comment, Atheist Gone Wild. I'm putting my shirt over my nose for you, cigarette kettle. Well, here's something for all you Yankees watching out there. So we call cigarettes, like if I'm with a friend or something and they're smoking, I'll be like, all right, mate, give us a fag. Yeah, I want a fag, mate. Can I have a fag?
Oh. He's gonna get my channel taken down, dude.
Whoa. No, don't come in here being all like that. No, fag means cigarette, mate. Thank you very much. That is a very British thing.
I actually know that's a real thing. Like, I know for sure, but you know, with the YouTube algorithms and all that kind of stuff, it's like
well, that's why I was explaining it. I didn't just turn around and be like, oh yeah, give us a fag, mate. I'm like, I'm explaining the whole culture around where we use the word fag, and fag is in reference to cigarette.
So in Britain, then, anyway, I gotta say thanks for keeping the people entertained, because if you weren't here and this happened, there'd be like 1 or 2 people left, but we still have 7 people here. So big up, Jay. Let's give a big up to Jay right here for keeping the stream lively. And
also, maybe put a 1 in the chat if you would like to have another British hour with the walkout on Superpower Broadcasting, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, we've you know, that raises an important question though, which is that what is the slur for somebody that's homosexual then in the UK? Is it the same word, or
yeah, but you'd use it in a sort of more of a derogative term, like, oh, you're a fucking fag, aren't you? You're one of them, sort of like that. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But you know, or they'll. Oh no, I would say that really, to be derogative to gay people, you'd say you're a pufter.
Oh,
we use that quite a lot. Yeah, would call you a pufter, or batty boy. And batty boy is more generic, just sort of. Yeah. I'd say queer, or packet fudger, or fudge packer. Sorry, they're the only ones I can really think of.
Interesting. Yeah. Dang. Well, you know, we will have to do the We Agree to Disagree stream at some point. I will get on that.
Yeah. Well, I sent you the link because I use this app called Calendly to book all my appointments now. It's just so much easier because it's awkward when people say, oh, it's this time here for me, it's this time for you. I'm just like, nah, mate, just click the link. It says what times I'm available on what day, and it's synced up with all my calendars, my work calendar, my personal calendar. So you can go on there right now, and there'll be times when you can't pick because it's, you know, I'm busy.
Gotcha.
And literally, the moment you press send, it pings on my phone saying, "Oh, so and so has booked a one-on-one chat with you." Unfortunately, I'm not paying for the full app. It's the free version, so I only have one option, which is an hour. But I always say to people, it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Just select a date and time, and we go from there, basically.
Oh man. No, that's good. That's good. We got people commenting on Arthur's profile picture in the chat. We have Nicholas here. He says, that Kyle face will never not get me. Hashtag how you gonna pay for it. Speaking of which, this seems to be, tradition now on this show. It always comes up. This is just an amazing clip, 15 seconds of our buddy Kremlin Kyle, the Russian cow. He's just asking questions.
Can you pay for it? 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 Can you pay for it?
So snarky, man. Oh man. Yeah. How gonna pay for it?
We're going to pay for it by legalizing drugs, regulating the ass out of them, putting taxes on, and then that will pay for it. Also, there's other things that we're going to do. We're going to liberalize. This one's more for America. Like, we're going to make it easier for small to medium-sized businesses to start up and give them more support in starting up and whatnot, and spur growth that way. That's just two things right off the top of my head. I do have others written down, but I don't have that pad with me close by.
Yeah. See, the thing is, there's a big difference with Kyle between he's basically frustrated that people ask him the question, how are you going to pay for the Green New Deal, which is going to be trillions of dollars a year, versus somebody arguing that the Pentagon should get another 20 or 30 billion dollars this year. And he's like, well, how are you going to pay for it? As if they're somehow equal. But it's, and I believe we've talked about this in the past, it's a legitimate question to ask. How are you going to pay for something that would double the government expenditure each year? Like, that's kind of a big question. So how are you going to pay for it?
When it comes to these people saying we're going to defund the police and whatnot, I've been saying this for a long time. It's not, I don't want to defund, but I want to evaluate our spending and make our spending more effective, because I do believe there is a lot of waste. And a prime example of that is the British NHS system. That's the National Healthcare System. There's a lot of waste of spending, waste of middle management and things like that go on in there. And I'm sure that goes for the military as well and other government agencies. And I do think that there needs to be an audit of these government organizations to make their spending more effective, basically.
Oh, they also need to get more funding. Like I just find it so disingenuous and so just across the board disgusting when these people, who are the same people who want to do the trillions of dollars in extra expenditure each year on healthcare, education, and the Green New Deal, they now are complaining about the police getting funding. It's like, if you wanted to solve the problem there, they don't have a problem with big programs that cost a lot of money. If you actually wanted to make the police more effective and have less incidents of police brutality, you would raise their funding and devote it to training. But they don't want to do that, because then there would be less reason to say fuck the police, and they're not concerned with making the police better. They're concerned with getting rid of the police, because they're literal anarchists and Marxists. That's my view. So
of course.
it's not about making the problem better. So
when it comes to other things that are when it comes to spending, I want to increase NASA's budget fourfold, because that will make us a shit ton of money. Every time we go to space, we make money, we create new technologies, we find new minerals, we find new elements on the periodic table. There's been so much technological advancement just since the 60s of us going to the moon. that I don't think we would have today if we hadn't have gone to the moon. So that's why I believe that NASA's budget should be maybe not quite as big as the US military's, but it needs to be fucking big.
It's nowhere near as big. It's about 1% of what the Pentagon gets each year right now. So it used to be a lot bigger back in the day. But the thing is, imagine you spend all that money and energy and you go and, like, I don't know, let's say you go to Europa or Enceladus or something, and you crack through the ice, and you go down there into the global ocean under the ice, and you're like looking around with a probe, like, are there aliens down here? And you come across like these like fish smurfs where they just ask you, they're like, how are you gonna pay for it? How are you gonna pay for it? Like Kyle clones, like Kyle aliens, like, you know, how are you gonna pay for it?
I would be concerned that there's Kyle clones on Europa's in the pools of methane. But the thing is like the moment we start going to asteroid belts and things like that, before, you know, we're going to be we'll have contracts and things, private corporations harvesting this shit, the minerals and everything else. They're going to be paying a shit ton of tax to the US government, and that will pay for it. You know, we just. Getting into space, start harvesting. The further we go, the more money we will make. It's going to be paying for itself.
That sounds,
yeah.
That sounds like space colonialism, man. You're like exploiting planets and stuff, man. You know.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, that sounds like imperialism. Sounds like space imperialism.
What's wrong with that?
That's like what bootlicker Ben and Kremlin Cow are going to say. They're going to say like this is an imperialist endeavor, an enterprise of imperialism.
What, an imperialist endeavor for the betterment of humanity as a whole? I don't see the flaws here, Carl. That's my response to that.
Yeah, but he's got his alien clones out there that are going to be oppressed. You know.
Oh,
no, I just okay. So we were trying to think up a nickname for Ben Norton, and Reese came up with Malware Ben, which I kind of got a kick out of because, you know, Norton and stuff. But
I
think you know, I want to run this by you. I think I came up with a better nickname than Reese. I came up with Bootlicker Ben. What do you think is better, Malware Ben or Bootlicker Ben?
Bootlicker is used quite a lot with other people. The malware one is unique to him, so I'm gonna go with that one.
No, I can see the argument. But I would argue that mine has way better alliteration. But that is a good point. It's kind of like base. Like there's base Bolton, there's base Biden. Like basically, if a guy starts with B, it's either going to be Baller Bob Kagan or like base Bill Crystal. Like those are the only two that really go with it. But Malware Ben, I don't know. It would be a lot better if his name was like, you know, like Moppin Norton, like, because there's the other bootlicker, Caleb Moppin. I need to think of a nickname with for him. Have you seen his stuff? I saw like 20 minutes of him. It was pure cringe. He like defends communist China as real communism today, which is interesting because normally they say it's not real communism, but he defends it and says it's great. So,
oh wow! So we actually have someone that says there is a country out there that has real communism. That's new.
Well, he says that they're building communism. He says that they're doing socialism in order to bring about the material conditions to enable communism. So, in other words, like with what Stalin was doing, all that kind of stuff. Like he's a fan of Stalin and Mao, and he's a fan of Xi. And he basically says, like, you know, for all these communists and stuff out here to look at China and just totally separate themselves from it. He says, yeah, but why not embrace the successes of socialism in other countries? That's his argument. In other words, isn't it great what she's doing right now? Isn't it great what Stalin did right now? That's his argument, basically. Now, I didn't watch very much of him. I'm not going to watch very much of him. But this guy works at Russia Today. By the way, isn't it funny how like Russia Today will hire people, give them like salaries, and all that you need to do is be like a very radical call tanky type leftist in America, and they will offer you a job. It's
Basically,
yeah, I don't know, man.
Paycheck from Russia Today.
Yeah, like Russia Today, because Russia Today would never hire like John Bolton. John Bolton wouldn't take the job, but they'll offer the job to like all these people, like Caleb Maupin. He's got about the same number of subscribers as Reese or so, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, come and work for us. Come and work for us." It's like, but they're not going to offer Reese that kind of job, right? Because of course Reese wouldn't take it. But it goes to the idea that, oh, but you don't understand, man. Sure, Russia Today doesn't do good coverage on Russia, but at least they do real journalism outside their borders, like in America.
No, they fucking don't.
That's their argument. That's their argument, is that, yeah, every country's media is biased towards their own country, but at least Russia Today is honest about America. And I'm like, they don't even operate in Russia. Like, they're specifically an international outlet. It's Russia, it's state TV that runs in Russia. Russian people don't watch Russia Today. Russia Today was made for white boys in the West to watch and get red-pilled on Russian-style fascism. That's the whole purpose for why it exists. That's why they hire all these like lefty progressives and stuff. And they have a lot of the like more crypto type fascist people that work there too. So, and then they'll bring on like odd eccentrics and stuff like Max Kaiser and those kinds of people and stuff, and
hardcore anti-Semites like Abby Martin,
and then they'll bring on, you know, of course, Peter Lavelle. By the way, Peter Lavelle is such a filthy traitor. I looked into his background. I used to watch his show Crosstalk to see what the Russians were up to. He benefited massively from America. He got all of his degrees up to his doctorate in economics from the University of California system. And then after he was done, he got up, left to go and work for the fucking Russians in Moscow. He married this woman who, she was pretty attractive, quite attractive actually. And then, you know, and she was Russian and everything. And he would be posting about it. I followed him on Facebook. Like, I was friends with him on Facebook for some time. I was just curious to see what he's up to. And he would like post like dinner dates in Moscow and stuff. And then, you know, after a few months or whatever, he's like, "Oh yeah, we're divorcing basically because she's a filthy liberal and I'm like a righteous conservative or whatever." And I'm like, just like, oh man, this guy's such a clown ball, man. And I'm like, this guy's like 45 or 50 years old or whatever. And he wears like the bow ties and stuff. And so you can basically think of him as like Russian Tucker Carlson, except he's also American, except he lives in Russia now. Like, I guess he renounced U.S. citizenship or whatever, but you know, he his profile picture on Facebook last I checked was him hanging out with Putin at that one of those press conferences. Like, him and Putin are friends. It's like, see, this is the thing that's such bullshit too, is this idea that like Russia Today is like somehow some impartial news network. It's like, what? I mean, they'll say, "Oh yeah, but you don't get it, man. CNN, they're not really impartial either." It's like, yeah, but CNN isn't like owned by Trump. Like, you know, it's like,
speaking of news agencies and being owned by Trump, News or American, I can't remember its name, but they've been in the White House. They're basically butt lickers for Trump, aren't they?
oh, is this One America News Network?
Yes, that's the one.
So,
so
they're actually, they've gotten financing from Russia. Like,
what a surprise!
No, they literally have been connected with the Russians. I'm not even joking. You can look into it. That's actually like a verified thing that they've got ties to the Kremlin. So
explains why they're such butt lickers for Daddy Trump, then, isn't it?
Oh, and Daddy Vladdy. Isn't it funny how all these America First people always put Russia first? Isn't that kind of funny? You know?
Oh yeah. But you know, Russia's a good guy, Kevin. They didn't.
Oh yeah, we're
nothing.
the bad guys. We're the bad
baddies.
So when they say America first, they mean America last, because like America's degenerate and stuff. It's like,
Well, this
Like,
is the thing, and
I
they
just,
blame the liberals and the lefties for selling out America and selling out the West. And it's like, are you
yeah.
fucking kidding me? Are you seeing what you lot are fucking doing?
Well,
You're the
the
ones selling
implication,
out.
well, like they're making the argument that like America used to be more conservative and now it's lost its way or whatever. But the obvious implication here is that the idea of America, the founding principles of America, Putin represents those now instead. And I'm just like, imagine that you brought George Washington back, you brought Thomas Jefferson back, you brought like these founders back right now. What would they say? They'd say the progressives are disappointing. But
Mm-hmm.
if you think we're going to be on the side of Putin right now, you're absolutely out of your mind. We want to reform our own country. Like, because obviously they wouldn't be down with people removing their statues and stuff. But like this idea that somehow the founding fathers would be for Putin right now, as
Yeah.
opposed to like John Bolton and Colin Powell and George Bush and Joe Biden, like, there's no way in hell George Washington votes for Trump over Joe Biden. He would vote for Joe Biden. Like,
Yeah.
regardless of whether he would be a Republican or a Democrat today, he would vote for Joe Biden. Like, I mean, I mean, it's just like that's not even close. He'd say like, oh yeah, this guy Trump, he's obviously compromised. Like he's obviously violated the emoluments clause. He obviously, I mean, those guys, the founders warned about having a president that was indebted to foreign nations like 300 years ago, 250 years ago. Like they
Yeah.
knew that it could happen one day. They warned about it. That's like, I mean, you know, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's just there's this idea out there. You'll see it all the time that, you know, it made sense to be against the Russians back during the Cold War because they were communists, but now they're somehow like good. Like ever since they got rid of communism, they became like the good guys. And it's like, no, the only difference that happened was they swapped out communism for fascism.
Fascism.
Like,
Well, authoritarianism is authoritarianism. It comes left and right. It's the same, really, just different flavors every now and then.
different flavors. And it's like the worst of both worlds because like
Mhm.
Putin himself isn't even like a fascist in like the technical sort of like, I guess, you know, Hitlerian sense of the term or whatever. He's
Mhm.
more of like a Mussolini guy because just like Mussolini, he's like he has a
Mm.
background as a socialist. Like Putin
Yeah.
was a trained communist for decades. Like if you asked him right now, would you wish that the Soviet Union was back? He would say yes. I mean, he's even spoken on that before openly. He said that
Yeah.
the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest disaster of the 20th century after World War II. So he obviously would like to bring communism back. He just can't do it right now.
I don't think Putin wants to necessarily bring communism back, but he wants to bring back the control over the nations that were in the USSR. Because when the fall of the Soviet Union happened, it wasn't just the Eastern Bloc that fell. The USSR itself lost how many nations broke away?
14.
14. There we go.
Plus
They were
the-
all under the
plus
direct
the-
control of Russia, as in the Moscow. They had direct control over those states, and then they broke away. That's what
Oh,
he
no,
wants
for
back.
sure.
He wants
For
wants
sure.
to control those 14 states and use them as buffer states between him and the degenerate West.
Well, yeah. See, that's the thing. I'm just imagining right now, like Thomas Jefferson coming back and has like, you know, I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat shirt, like because
Yeah.
those shirts they sell them in like the Trump gang, like the Keep America Great crowd, the KEG crowd. Those guys, they wear shirts like that. I've seen them at the rallies and stuff on TV. They're like, yeah, I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat, and it's like, okay, but like, what? What
Yeah,
is
I
even
know.
the point? Like, what's even the point? Like, if we're gonna do treason, it's like, what? Like, why even bother? What? Like, why not just move there at that point? Like, if you're
Exactly.
basically, like, if you're like, what I find about it is like, I understand the deplorables thing. I understand like you try to own the attacks of your opponents to make it so that they lose power. I get that logic.
Mhm.
With the deplorables, it made sense. But there's a difference between taking an insult or a nickname or something that your opponents charge you with and flipping it back on them so you sound based versus your opponents call you a traitor and then you say, oh yeah, I am a traitor. It's like that guy. He's just like, yeah, I am a punk. It's like Aid Skrillex tier cringe. It's like, I am a punk. I thought that was just such a funny moment where he's like, it was just such a clash of worlds, where one guy's insult is another man's pride. It's like, happens all the time, I guess. I guess it was kind of like, it would be kind of like calling Pete Buttigieg gay. It's like, you're gay. And he'd be like, yes. It's like, what? It's like, it's not the insult that you think it is. But
yeah. Right, Kevin, I'm going to have to leave you to it, my friend. It's getting on, and the day is starting. Well, the day is way past starting, but I have a number of things that I need to get done before 5 o'clock.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, well, have a good day, Jay. And, I will definitely book an appointment in that app that you sent me the link to. Yeah. And we'll be ready to go. I'll get the list out. I think we discussed that we would each have 7 areas that we think that we'll disagree on, and it'll be a bit of a longer stream. So I'll have to think carefully so we have a few hours set aside. I think it's going to be a longer one. So
also
it'll be a good one.
Book a second one because I want to have you on my channel to sort of give you a shout out and everything. We'll only do that one for like an hour, but it'll be more of an interview based sort of thing to hopefully get you some of my people to go over to your channel and we can drop some hot pills on them.
No, that'd be based. I'm always down to drop some hot pills for sure. So thanks for coming on, Jay. I'm also kind of tired too. I've been up for 21 hours already, so I'm going to go to bed pretty soon. So, but yeah, have a good night, dude.
Sleep, Kevin, and to everyone else, you'll take care, and I'll catch you all soon. So yeah, peace. Bye.
Yeah, peace, Warhawk. Okay, so there goes Jay. Thanks for coming on, Jay. We got Arthur in the chat. He says the Lincoln Project is really a ray of sunshine and all this cringe. Oh yeah, I've been watching their ads. They're pretty blunt. They don't really hold anything back. They just, they're calling Trump out as like basically a clown at this point. And I mean, the thing that I like about the Lincoln Project the most is like they're Republicans. Like, yeah, you can try to call them communists and lifelong Democrats and all this stuff, all that you want, but it's like, it's not going to stick. Like the Lincoln Project is effective in a way that the Squad could never be. Like if the Squad makes those types of ads, it's going to come across as disingenuous and hacky. If the Lincoln Project makes it, you're like, oh, those people are in his party for the most part. And they're saying you can't go with him. I think a lot of independents are going to look at that and say, if even his own party is saying you can't trust this guy, I mean, I think that Joe Biden has a really good chance of victory. I think, like I've said it for a long time, about 2/3 chance of winning. I still feel it's about a 2/3 chance that he's got, because think about it. The reason why Trump was able to eke out a victory against Hillary Clinton was that they were both deeply unpopular people, and one just happened to win. One was going to win. It happened to be Trump, right? That's not surprising. But this time, Joe Biden's kind of a neutral guy. Some people like him. Some people don't like him. A lot of people are kind of meh. He doesn't evoke the same degree of hatred that Hillary Clinton evoked. Hillary Clinton was deeply unpopular. Now, I like Hillary Clinton personally more than Joe Biden. But I understand that there was a 25-year-long campaign by the Republican Party to demonize her, right? All the way back to the Lewinsky scandal, of course, throughout her tenure in government, up to the Benghazi scandal, all that kind of stuff, all those fiascos. Joe Biden didn't really have that. Joe Biden's a lot more neutral. So if you have somebody who's got a neutral favorability versus somebody who's very unfavorable, well, it's not surprising that Joe Biden could really win by quite a lot. Now, it would still be kind of a close election. I don't think he's going to win like 45 states. I know the Lincoln Project did put out a map showing like what would you do if you woke up and it was like this, and it was almost like Reagan tier, like Reagan 1984 but flipped. And I'm like, yeah, but that's never going to happen. But I do like the Lincoln Project. I like Bill Kristol. I like those other guys over there. They're great. For those of you who weren't here the other stream, I mentioned that I ordered Bill Kristol's dad's collection of essays along with the Bolton book. So that'll come shortly. That is the Neoconservative Persuasion by Irving Kristol. So it's a collection of essays he wrote from like 1942 up to around the time of his death, essentially. So it'll be good. We will do not for that one, not a book review. I'll literally have video reviews on each of the essays in the book. And then I'll also have a book review for Bolton's book. So, there will be book reviews on this channel in time for sure. I'm also at some point going to be doing a video series on the neocon icons, essentially, because it's kind of an obscure thing on YouTube. You don't really see like much about neocons on YouTube. If you Google neocons, you're probably going to get like Kyle saying, oh yeah, he's a neocon ghoul. And like Kyle has no idea what a neocon is. Like he thinks like if a term has the word neo in it, it means he likes bombing people. He's hawkish. That's basically what he would define it as. What a goofball. And I mean, we can see it right now. Like look at Arthur. That he's got Kyle's profile picture right there. Does that look like a guy who knows very much? No, it doesn't. So, man, you all should definitely go and check out Arthur's channel, Atheist Gone Wild. He does some pretty funny parody videos and stuff. It's pretty great. I like the mashups. They're pretty funny. He's done a few of me too, where like I sound kind of goofy and stuff. Those are cool. I get a kick out of those. He's just having fun. So Olympian God writes, I think Putin just wants to return Russia to its former glory days, but not full-blown communism. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think the idea that somehow Putin has no ideology or anything is kind of, it's a bit too cynical. I think that Putin, of course, embraces Eurasianism. Putin is very conservative, as well as pretty left-wing on economics and very chauvinistic and very authoritarian. But so is the Soviet Union. Like the Soviet Union was pretty Nazbol in and of itself, especially, basically right after, 1920s or so, it became Nazbol-y, especially. I mean, Putin, or not Putin, but Lenin himself, he did have some socially progressive views that were enforced, and they were militantly enforced, and you would be sent to concentration camps if you disagreed with him, basically. But then Stalin, of course, was a lot more conservative. And then ever since Stalin, the regime was basically a very conservative and very leftist economic state. So I think the Soviet Union, like if Putin could take the Soviet Union back as it was with its ideology, he would do it in a heartbeat over what Russia has right now. So that's my view of it. And all of his time that he spent at the KGB, I think it ingrained in him this view of that system as being the way that things should be in Russia, that's the only way to control Russia. I think, that's just how Putin feels. And he's not going to relinquish power. The only way that he leaves power is by death of natural causes or by external intervention. So, yeah, Dr. Zayas makes the best analogy here. He says, imagine if Democrats wore "I'd rather be Al-Qaeda than Republican" shirts in 2008. Yeah, that's basically the equivalent. I mean, that's the exact same thing. Because they're selling shirts. Some of the Trump people. Obviously, there are going to be Trump supporters out there that look at that and think it's stupid and that it's just feeding into the fake news narrative or whatever, that Trump is with the the Russians or whatever. And I'm sure a lot of the people, in fairness to them, I'm sure that a lot of those Trump voters that wear that shirt, they aren't literally saying that they want to be with Putin. I'm sure a lot of them fancy themselves to be patriotic Americans or whatever, and they feel like they're clowning on the media. But I know for a fact that there's a subset of Trump supporters who unironically think that Vladimir Putin is based and that he's like this hero of Christendom and stuff, which is hilarious because, of course, Russia is like one of the most atheistic countries in the world, and they're deeply not Christian. Of course, they have a big Muslim community there, huge. I always find it funny when these alt-right people will go after like Germany and France and stuff in Europe for having Muslim refugees and stuff. I think that the migrant wave, I think that that kind of stuff was a debacle. Don't get me wrong. If I were in charge, I would have bombed Assad early on and that refugee crisis would have been averted. And those people would still be in Syria and they'd have their own country and they'd be free to raise their families and live life in their own homes. But the alt-right obviously doesn't like refugees coming over. And so what do they say? They look at Merkel, they look at Macron, they look at all these leaders in Europe and they say to them, they're like, you take in Muslims, you're such a degenerate, as they shill for Putin. And you're like, okay, but Russia has like the highest percentage of Muslims in Europe. It's like over 15%. Like it's way higher than Germany. It's like more than double what it's not even close. Like, isn't Germany like 2 or 3% or something is Muslim? And Russia's like 15%. I haven't checked the stats in a while. It's been a couple years, but last I checked, it was like 15%. Like a sixth of the country is like literally Muslim at this point. It's huge. Like Chechnya itself is like majority Muslim. That's not a thing in any of the German territories, for example. So, I mean, you can point to like one local area in a city here or a part of Marseille or Paris that happens to have a high population of Muslim refugees. But like you can point to like huge territories in Russia where like basically everybody's Muslim. And the government is controlled by Muslims. So for the alt-right to shill for that is like, oh yeah, that's a bastion of Christendom. It's kind of funny. Kind of funny. These people don't really know jack shit, so. Take a look at the chat. Kudava asks, will Biden bring in cringy far leftists in his administration, or will he go with sane Democrats? Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a mix of both. If I'm keeping it real with you, it's going to be a mix of both. I wish, here's what I wish he would do. Say, I don't need the Bernie people. They're irrelevant. I'm not even going to be selecting any of them. I won. People chose me. I have the mandate. We're going with moderates. And we're going to have Mitt Romney for Secretary of State, and we're going to have John Bolton for National Security Advisor. Now, I know he wouldn't do Bolton, but he might do Romney. Imagine Joe Biden picks Mitt Romney for Secretary of State, and imagining allowances it pretty early on so that Republicans can be like, oh, so it's not just going to be like progressive squad stuff. It's actually going to be a reasonable president if we vote for Joe Biden. Oh man, can you imagine how big Joe Biden would win if he picked a Republican for Secretary of State? He'd win independents huge. Like, I know if you watch Young Turks, they would say, this is the worst decision you could ever make. 70% of America is progressive. Sure, Bernie lost huge, but like, come on, man. The whole country is progressive. That's why I got 6% in California. He literally got 6% in like one of the most progressive districts. It's hilarious. So his theory is obviously bunk and junk. The average independent is not to the left of Biden. They're to the right of Biden. That's why they're an independent. They're between a Democrat and a Republican. They're not between a Democrat and a literal socialist, as the Young Turks would have you believe. So let's see what else is in the chat. Olympic God says, Kevin, I literally saw a Molson Canadian commercial called I Am Canadian. And the person says, I believe in peacekeeping, not policing. I'm like, bruh. Oh, it's sad. Yeah, okay, there's a lot to go over with that. I wish that Canada did more peacekeeping. Canada used to be big on peacekeeping. There used to be a time when like Canada was pretty known for peacekeeping type actions in a lot of parts of the world, as well as humanitarian intervention and whatnot. Canada's kind of become a bit of a joke since the pullout from Afghanistan. It's unfortunate. Yeah, peacekeeping is a type of policing, though, and I know that they're referring, I guess, to um, this idea of defunding the police or whatever. I'm just meaning that going back to like Lester B. Pearson and the era of peacekeeping in Canada. Canada did have a big track record of in international situations keeping the peace, especially in places like Africa, which was important. Um, I guess this commercial is specifically talking about in an American context. That's so stupid. Like you got 300 million guns in America, and there are people out there right now that want to take guns away from the cops. Like, how stupid are you? Demilitarize the police. It's like, okay, well, if that's going to work, you have to demilitarize the population first, which I don't support. I think that gun rights are important. I've gotten pilled on that over the years. I used to be really critical of gun rights, and now I can see the logic in it a lot. It's a lot harder to take over a country and turn it into a dictatorship if the people have guns. So, yeah, we got a counter argument from Kyle here. He says, but lackluster Lauren said Germany is 1,000% Muslim. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Lauren Southern definitely said that. No-go zones, never forget. Well, I mean, there are like the no-go zones meme. That is a thing in some places. That like I've talked to people that have been in these cities before. They're like, oh yeah, those are a real thing. But like by that logic, though, there are literally whole parts of Russia, like Chechnya, which is huge. Like that's what's that? Like the size of Germany or whatever, or like half the size of Germany, where I guess it's a no-go zone by that logic. So, Secretary of State Haley or Romney and Secretary of Defense Bolton. Oh man, can you imagine that? Like, I know that Joe Biden wouldn't do it. Unfortunately, I think that Joe Biden, if I had to put money on it, I would say he only picks Democrats for his cabinet and, for his administration. I wish he would mix it up. Just imagine he mixes up. Just a couple Republicans. That could go miles for him in beating Trump. Yeah, Trump said Biden votes for the endless wars. Yeah, no, Trump sounds like a college hippie right now. It's pathetic. Yeah, and of course Arthur points out like progressives won't vote for him anyway. I'd pick a centrist VP. Oh yeah, he's probably going to pick like Amy Klobuchar, for example. But he's got to pick a Republican for some role so he can win over independents. Dr. Zaya says that would be a disaster. Most Republican voters wouldn't care, and they just call Romney a rhino like they do now. And the Bernie bros would just say, we told you he was Trump 2.0. Yeah, I can see that, but like some Republican voters would care. And you only need to win over like a couple percent to really guarantee the election for you, right? Because you're not going to lose Democrats. Like the Democrats that he would lose by doing that, they're not going to be voting for him anyway. So he can only gain by it. It's not like it's going to be, oh, I lost Jimmy Dore now. It's like he never had Jimmy Dore. Oh, yeah. Trump quoted Chamberlain at West Point. Like, what? Yeah, no, Donald Trump is a pigeon. I'm telling you, he does not have a hawk bone in his body. He simply doesn't know how to do foreign policy properly. He doesn't get it. His whole instinct is just, we're bad. Let's just pretend the world doesn't exist. let's just surrender to the Taliban, surrender to the terrorists, and then maybe they won't then maybe they won't hurt us. That's really his idea, is just, oh yeah, let's not fight them, let's just let them do their thing and hope that it works out. Oh man, that's so stupid. And then he tries to market himself as this tough guy. Oh man. Yeah, no, I think that even 1 or 2 Republicans would go a long way to try to win over people across the aisle. You know, that's my view. That's my view. You can call me a boomer. You can call me a boomer. Like I said, I call myself a boomer all the time. I don't care. So that's just my perspective, at least. But I can see the argument for the other side that, like, well, you know, no Republicans are really going to care. But my point here is, like, when the election's going to come down to like 70,000 votes, like it did in 2016, even if you win over 1% of Republicans, that's huge. Like, that's huge, man. That would go a long way. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up right now. We're at the 2-hour mark. So thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks to Jay again for coming on tonight. I'll be here tomorrow night. And with that, definitely be sure to like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. Definitely check out the link in the description below and go follow me over on Twitch. We're at 31 followers. We got to get up to 50 followers in order to get affiliate status with them. And finally, if you want to support this channel financially, you can go to my Patreon, which is, scrolling down in the Chiron below, as well as in the link in the description. That is patreon.com/superpowerbroadcasting. And when we hit $100 a month, I will begin rolling out daily pre-recorded videos premiering to YouTube, in addition to these daily streams premiering, or rather broadcasting to Twitch and YouTube. So we're already over halfway there. Let's make it happen, hot gang. So let's get high energy. With that, have a good night, everybody. Peace.